Hey, good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the first Wednesday in March. I'm Miss Roshumba, and we are here today with
Tracy Shaw, owner of Crowded Variety Store located at 2251 Florin Road, Suite 134.
all right. So I'm in his store, and we are doing greatness. This is another session number, I would say 4, of the Rainbow of Poems, tribute to Early Laverne, and it presents Let's Commune and Chat. So today, Mr. Tracy and I, Ms. Roshumba, are going to talk a little bit more in depth about what's going on in our community and things that we are still working on. I'm going to begin with a poem by Mr. Early Laverne, which of course I mentioned, I don't know if in this session, but he's an ancestor now and has been for 2013. So this is a tribute to his memory and what he represented in our community. The poem I'm doing today is called I Have Long Seen the Light. And here we go. I have long seen the light. Yes, I'm endowed with spiritual insight. My very soul immortally knows no end. To humanity's best, I'm ever a dear friend. My heart is filled up of demonstrating what is right. I hold on to a realistic plight. The mode toward paying the right price is to ever increase your passion to be nice. The art of living is to perfecting your best. Your performances should be empowered with zest. I have long seen the light. This is my sacred delight. Many people experience an illusionary void. They never hardly listen to that inner voice. Such would inspire them to make the right choice. This process would prevent you from being annoyed. The values that you should put on your spiritual plate is that you are potentially great. Deception and obstruction you must fight. Personally speaking, I have long seen the light. Early Laverne's piece. Yeah, he was a master, and one day I will elaborate on his story because he represents what it means to be a black man in this society and overcoming. Now we know death is for all of us, but he truly lived courageously, and I'll elaborate one day, not today. So today, I'm getting a little closer to my friend here because I'm so excited to be able to talk a little bit with Mr. Shaw. Would you prefer Tracy or Mr. Shaw?
Either one. Mr. Tracy is what the
Or
children
Shaw.
call me.
Okay.
Or Shaw, either one.
Yes.
I answer to all of them.
Okay, I'm going to say Shaw.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's
Shaw.
right. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So today I thought we would talk a little bit about what it means to be a black man in the 21st century.
Wow. That's a
You
big
know,
one.
what are the challenges facing the black man in a system that has devalued you from day one?
Right. So, I mean, just to jump right in, the first things that come to mind are from the perspective of being a black father with 2 black sons.
Okay.
That inherently brings about stress and worry and concern for their safety.
Yes.
As we've learned over the past couple of years,
Yes.
We still aren't safe. Our children still are faced with some of the same things that our ancestors were faced with when they leave the house.
Exactly.
So from that perspective, being a black man in the 21st century comes with its level of concerns. from the perspective of a father, I think Ta-Nehisi Coates
Yes.
summarized it best. So I have those concerns.
Right.
Concerns about whether or not we actually are advancing through the process of manufacturing and producing goods and services,
Right.
so that we're not fully dependent on not just one other group, but every other group for our existence.
Yes.
So,
And Mr. Shaw is mentioning being self-reliant. And so I'm happy to say that I'm in his store that sells a variety of things. He's not only speaking about, what we should try to do, but he's actually doing it. And so I respect you for that, my brethren. And I also respect you when you talk about your sons. As a black man, the only one that could really feel the pain of a youth oftentimes is really closely is their father. And so when we know that we live in a system that has taken the heart of the black man away from connecting with his son, you could know that we're under siege.
indeed.
We're under siege because when you cannot say, I got you, young man, then they're so vulnerable to the system as a whole.
Right.
Because I've come to understand that this system is built on the shoulders of the experience of what it means to go out in the world as a young youth. For me as a woman, not so bad, but I had 5 brothers and I'm an only girl. So they weren't allowed to make the normal youthful mistakes, because any mistakes, anything they do to just be trying to experiment in what it means to be an adolescent could cost them their freedom.
That's real.
And I had one brother that lost his life in his mid-40s, but his entire life was just a chase. The system chasing him until eventually he had to give in, and that was it. So you mentioned the care for your son. Are your sons, how old are they now?
So the younger is 22. He's in college at Cal Poly, and the other is 28 next month. No, this month. And he graduated San Jose State. He lives here in Sacramento, working full-time doing his thing. But, and I want to make it clear, my children are not exceptions. I would say 99.9% of all parents want their children to go get educated. So when I say they're not the exception, they're not the exception of what a parent would want for their children. So we're not special in what they accomplish. But that narrative has to be put out there, because I believe that it's been said and we've accepted that for whatever reason, our kids either aren't going to school, aren't interested in going to school, or they're not progressing. And that may be true of some, but I think that these statistics may be a little skewed. My whole world is surrounded or involves children that are looking to educate themselves and further their lives through education and some meaningful project or process that's going to yield them the ability to take care of themselves and their families.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
I just want to make sure that I don't want to come off as somebody who has this secret, or we did things a certain way and this is what you should do. We are the same as every other black family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but when you say they are educated, because what I've come to understand from K to 12 in a integrated educational system, it's very difficult for people of African descent because they omit our story. For a black youth to find himself in a white teacher teaching him about their history and omitting your story, it's very hard to stay focused and engaged to make it to a senior year.
It can be.
And so I admire those youths that are able to have done that and go on to a higher education, because it's in higher education that you start to hear your authentic story. Excuse me. And so I say that to say, getting to college is a good thing, but like you say, it's not for necessarily for everyone. But what I've come to understand is knowledge is power. So the more you get to a wide variety of knowledge, then the easier it is for you to find out your niche in this society.
Right.
Because we must know the educational system tell the story of the conqueror in the interim, in the beginning. And it's only later, like I said, that you can dive in and find out what was the black man, the black woman story. We are just finishing up Black History Month, which in this country should not be talked about in the 21st century, because Black history is American history.
Yeah.
And if we're just selecting that same 1 month in the 21st century to celebrate us, the educational system has failed us. And so one thing I must say for myself, and this is the thing that I'm sharing with most of the youths that I see wherever I see them, get out of that rectangular box and go in search of the truth of how we even got here this far after that rugged past. But you must know that rugged past. So you mentioned something about your grandfather and the fact that your grandfather's story is to be remembered but not to use necessarily as...
What I was saying is,
Go ahead, yes.
Our grandparents and great grandparents had their story in the 21st century. It's my opinion that I don't get to use their story as a reason for my lack of whatever it is. I won't call it success, but at least as a reason for me to not try to advance myself, my family, my culture, my people. They did their thing so that I could sit here today and do the rest of the work or continue the work. Right? Not sit back and go, Grandpa and them did well, so I can kick it now.
I could kick it on their asset that they passed on.
Yeah.
It's funny that he said that, because that is so important. Because the hardship of our ancestors, they end up passing on to us, some of us, not all, houses, assets, real assets. But one thing sometimes they did not share with us is how to keep it. So when you have a young people that, is come by and you give them a little bit of this, a little bit of that, grandpa, father, mother, we're giving them, but not giving them the knowledge of what it took to get it and to hold it in this toxic environment. So by the time we pass on the house and all the other equitable items we've earned in our lifetime, for example, they don't pay their property tax and they lose it.
It can happen. But there's also circumstances within the U.S. and within U.S. history that also led to that circumstance. For instance, in the 80s, we had the crack epidemic, where I witnessed this living in Los Angeles during the 80s. I mean, there's no way those children were going to hang on to the assets that their ancestors passed on, just because almost a whole generation of us were decimated.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so,
but would you say that's the exception?
I would say that it's an unfortunate part of our history.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think it's an exception as much as it is. It's just one thing among many
as to why we would lose what they have passed on.
You know what I mean? But it's a big one.
It's a big one. Because there's always something going on. What would you say is going on now in the 21st century that, say, for example, passing on to our children now what we have worked hard for, which would cause them to lose it? And now that we're in the 21st century and it's not so much crack anymore, but...
Well, one thing that we have to, I think, ensure is that as best we can as the future ancestors, right? I mean, we can't look for somebody else to do the work. We're no longer young and up and coming. They're looking at us now. It's our time, right? I'm 57. It's my time. I'm not looking for moms and them to go, so what are y'all going to do next? I know you sat at the back of the bus and you demonstrated and all that, but, what are you going to do next for us? It's our time now. So now for us to ensure that our children hang on to some of the equitable assets that we've acquired, whether we got them from our parents or we went out and got them ourselves.
Right.
We have to educate ourselves in the best way to make sure that that gets passed on. So what does that look like? Will and trust, life insurance, things of that nature. Prioritize them, at least go learn about them, and then find out whether or not this is the path forward to keep the things that you've had. That's just one example.
That's one. And this is where we would look back at grandfather's story as well and see how grandfather, now we could say grandfather passed this on to cousin so-and-so or our auntie so-and-so, and they lost it this way. So there was a generation that stopped talking to the next generation. They would just show you. They wouldn't tell you the story of how they came about, what they did, their pains, and so on. So I think our generation has learned that we have to do more talking. We have to tell what pains us, what hurt us, what we had to do in those dark times to get overcome. Some of the shameful things we may have had to do at times.
Right.
Just so that we can move them forward.
Me personally, I agree with you 100%. For me, I grew up in a not unique situation, but the situation was my father was in the military for 27 years, so almost all of my heroes were black men. I lived in an environment where we're talking 0% unemployment.
Wow.
Okay. There's no old people. There's no homeless. It has its
military,
other issues.
military.
It's military, and we're out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, and your mom and dad were together.
Yes.
Okay. See, and that's special within itself.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not unique if you're in that environment. Every household
in the military
had a mother, a father that was working.
Okay.
So what I was able to experience was I would go over my best friend Dino's house, and I would see how black people live when the father's working. His mom had a job, my mother had a job. This is how we live when everybody's working and we have very few outside influences tearing our family apart. It's about the business of raising your kids, going to work and doing your thing. So in my experience, you go over somebody's house, the lawn is cut, you go in there, it's gonna smell like some form of cleaning agent, pine saw, bleach.
And would you say you're a baby of the 70s and the 80s?
I was born in 65.
Okay, so the culture of that time was right after, the 60s, the revolution. Yeah. So
well, our story is unique because my father,
unique.
I was born in the Midwest.
Okay.
3 months later, we're in Spain.
Oh, so he did a lot of traveling.
Well, my father did.
Oh, you didn't go with him?
I went. Okay. I was in
Okay.
Spain. We were in Spain for 3 years. Uniquely, now this is unique. When we got there, now this is in 65.
Yeah.
So my mother had nannies, maids. They were white women. Okay, so my head was, when we got back to the States, I'm sure that I was a different type of kid than a lot of other black kids running around, because my perspective on the world was like, what? I don't see the big problem is, these people work for us.
Yeah.
So when we come back, my brother, now we go to Omaha, and my mom's kind of fly. She's been to Morocco and all these different places, so she's kind of worldly now.
Correct.
But when we get back to the States, you can imagine that all that worldliness and all that travel.
They said you were still a
Okay.
You're still a We
So-
won't say the word, but we understand.
You understand?
Yeah.
So my brother was, now he's getting in fights at school and all this other madness. So, we had to reacclimate and be around our folks again. I'm talking about the family. But even with that, there's some people in our family that have done some pretty big things. So again, my heroes were black men, and so.
Speaking of heroes being black men, now we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship between the black man and the black woman. Because you said you have two sons, so I
do.
take it you have no daughters.
No daughters. I have a niece.
Okay, you
I
have a
a
niece.
few nieces that I help raise.
Okay.
Well, two.
Okay.
Mhm.
And in your family, with your siblings, any sisters?
No.
Oh, well, we could see why he says his heroes are men. This is a real patriarchal energy going on.
Right,
Men,
right.
men, men, men.
Right.
So your mother was a queen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So your mother played a very big part. Now, were you really close to her? Because,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's a shero.
She's a shero.
Yeah. When I say all my heroes are black men, I'm talking about the ones that I identified with that I'm trying to be like.
Yes.
Right.
How many siblings did you have?
Just myself and my older brother.
So two boys
Two
too.
boys,
And
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. No, my mom has a lot of siblings, all of which I don't know, but
Okay.
the ones that wound up in California, we're very close to. They helped raise me.
Were they male or female?
Male.
Male.
Yeah.
She was. Don't say she was the only girl.
No. She's got like 4 brothers, and I think 3 sisters.
Okay, so she had sisters on her
but
lineage.
she's the oldest.
Okay.
Second oldest, and only 2 of them made it to California. Yeah.
Okay.
And then my father had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and but his father was like kind of a pillar in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a policeman, first black police sergeant in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
So he has his story.
Yeah.
My uncle was the postmaster of Los Angeles.
So you came from a family of black people and black men that were doing things.
Big
They weren't
time.
just found around the corner giving it up and saying that's it.
No, and
You
all
know?
3 of my father and both his brothers served in the military during wartime. So
Okay, and the fact that we are talking about the black men and their contribution to this country, and again being reminded that Black History Month is actually, it's Black History is 365. Mostly based on what he just said and keeps saying, his family was in the military. Now we know in America, any country, the highest respect you could give to that country is to go to war for it, to be in the military, prepared to go to war for it. And the black man is like the only man other than the white man that could say that in every war since the conception of this country, he has gone to war for this country and for his freedom in this country. No other individual groups that are here now could say that. So the ultimate respect for the black man should be really, number one, the black people should know it, which I don't think we even really think about that. But it should be also said in the books, in history books in the school, because that is to be respected. And that if we understood what that meant, we would not see under the bridges black men thrown away like garbage. Because if he didn't serve, somebody in his family somewhere had served to make this country a better place. And so I hope in just talking about it and speaking to Mr. Shaw about just his family's connection to it and what it means to be a black man in this country. He represents it. His father, his relative have all been a part of it. So I don't take it lightly when you say you're an American, because being an American, I'm an immigrant.
Yeah, I never say that.
Yeah, but being an American has a special connection to the black people here.
It does, but that's interesting. You should bring that up because that's not a quote you'll ever hear come out of my mouth.
That you're proud to be one?
I just never referred to myself in 57 years on this planet as an American. Not that I'm not. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make me any less American. Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly, I'm born here. I'm American. But, I don't beam with pride as a result of saying those words. It doesn't mean that much to me.
Interesting.
To say, well, I'm proud to be an American. I'm like, put it this way. I've been to other countries. I'm happy about some of the amenities that we have here, but I can't get caught up in being proud to be an American when I know we have this mountain of work to do.
Exactly.
You
But
know?
I guess the reason why I would say that is when you understand what it means to be rooted
Yeah,
someplace,
yeah.
that means no one could come from any country and come and move you over.
Now that
Which
I
is
would
why,
agree with. Yeah.
you know, because if you understood what it meant to know that your ancestors' blood, sweat, and tears is in this soil,
Paid for this place. Yeah.
then you know these people come Johnny come lately can't come and put up a business over here in front, and yours is still way in the back.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because that's where you start to say, you know, wait a minute here, I'm gonna pull that card. My people paid all kinds of price for this
But,
country.
you know,
Bam.
here's what I would say to that, and I'm not disagreeing.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I'm agreeing with you. But there are decisions that we can make on a day-to-day basis that would affect the ability, even if there's programs that allow for immigrants to come over, get loans, get whatever they need to get set up in business and all that kind of stuff. We decide to give them our money. Okay? Now, part of that decision is driven by the fact that they're strategically located. So it's less of a decision. It just becomes more of a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a decision in there to not be inconvenienced as well. Now, I don't want to start sounding like Kanye or anything like that, but where I'm going with that is when you know about black businesses and you make a concerted or conscious effort to take convenience over patronizing
Your own. Yeah.
you're kind of empowering everybody else.
But you see, what I wanted to add to what you're saying or subtract from it a little bit is once you understand the price your ancestor has paid, then you don't look to take a seat in the back. You debate why you're supposed to be up front.
Right.
So that if your people are driving down the road, they could see you.
Right.
But like I say, if you don't know the journey and understand the implications of being a real American,
right.
Not by choice back in the 1619
right.
when they brought
right.
us here.
Right.
Everyone else that has come, Johnny come lately, most of them came on planes and, ships, but we came and paid some ultimate prices. I have not been born in this country, but the country of my birth, Jamaica, similar situation. We're all under the same compass of enslavement.
It is the exact same
Exactly.
thing.
So right now, Jamaica is being bought out by China,
So is Africa.
and all the stores and the places there that we were once business owners in is now gone.
Right.
But I really attribute it to not having this conversation. We're having enough amongst each other, and defining our narrative.
Right.
Because a narrative is a story. And we have used the story of the oppressor to define our existence. Maybe in our stores, the things that we're selling, our people understand that they need it, so they won't go and find it elsewhere.
Right.
You see, so we have to really know the language of our people, and especially the ones that are sleeping, that are still not awake to even hear us, because there's this nuance that we black people will have amongst each other, that some will come in your store and look around and go right next door to another store and spend their money, because there's this internal hate that they got us going on. And I must say it has to do with the medium. When you watch too much of their movies, their love stories, their victories, what if that becomes your story after a while? I'm just saying. When you're in the school and you're reading their history and you see nothing of your history, where are you going to get your story from, my brethren? And so if on the Sunday evening, what are we doing at home? Are we sitting there, playing video games or watching football, and watching them chase that little ball rather than having the conversation about what grandpa thought, what grandma thought, some of the challenges they had to face so that we could even sit here in a nice, comfortable home with, a car in a garage and those types of things. So you mentioned that about grandfather, the understanding grandfather's story and the importance of bringing it forward, or maybe not necessarily pushing it as hard, but I like to say that the reason why I must know my grandparents' story is that I don't get too comfortable.
That part, yes.
That I don't get too
Yeah.
comfortable that
Right.
I think I've made it and now I'm
Right.
watching their movie and
There
where
it
they
is, right
interject
there.
you.
There
Yes.
it is right there. So, so when we moved to Sacramento from the Bay Area in 2017, I was intentional in my spending. I did basically, and I posted on social media, 30 days of shopping black in Sac, which means what that entailed was seeking black businesses
Yes.
to meet my needs.
That's correct.
And my needs are pretty basic, right?
Yeah.
I need to eat,
Yeah.
and need, maybe clothing and a couple other things. And just to kind of give you the summary, I did it for 60 days, but the first month, it averaged out to, I spent like $300 and it averaged out to $10 a day.
Wow.
Spending black in
Yeah.
Sac.
Yeah.
As a part of that process, I met the man, Terry Crowder III, who owned a dollar store up in Del Paso Heights.
Okay.
Mr. Crowder, basically, long story short,
Yes.
gifted his store to me.
Wow. Can you
And-
hear that? That's black love, black unity right there. He
It
gifted
is.
you this store,
He
my
gifted me the
brethren?
store. So let me tell the story.
Yes.
So real quick, what happened was I went there, started shopping, and I told him, I said, listen, my son, who was at the time first year of college, so he's been 3D printing for like 4 or 5 years now.
Yes.
And almost everything that you have in here is plastic. It comes from China, and you have to buy 1,500 of them to
Yeah.
get the price point that you can, use to sell in a dollar store. Instead of doing that, why don't you give us a shot at 3D printing some of these things? You order enough to fill up a hook,
Yes.
save yourself a lot of money. We have an exclusive deal with you, and this could work out for both of us.
Right.
Well, he was in the middle of a couple of things where we didn't get to that per se because he had some other things Terry did
Right.
that he was working through. One of which was he had expanded, or he and his business partner at the time had expanded their business or the square footage of the business, and they didn't have enough merchandise to fill up that new part.
So make a long story short,
So he went to me and my brother went to him and said, "Look, can we give you a bridge loan to try and help?"
Right. Look at that.
And it wasn't enough to fill it up.
Yeah.
And by then, another big chain had moved in right across the parking lot. And there was another
Oh.
dollar store. So that's where he was like, you know what? Little too late. Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the most important part of this story. It was all about the love.
Yes.
First of all, it was important to us that one of our brothers had a dollar store. We met this brother, good brother. So we wanted to help him.
That's correct. Black love.
Black love.
Black love.
Black love.
That's correct.
That's all this
Yeah.
was. So when
No competition.
no,
Cooperation.
that's all. That's all. We wanted to see him win.
That's
For
correct.
real. Because I want a place to go shop.
So whose narrative do we use when we see each other like that?
Ours. We create our
That's
own.
correct.
We create our own
That's
narrative.
correct.
So to bring it home, Terry, because this big chain kind of crushed his business, Terry ended up putting everything back in his storage locker, moving back to New York, and but he and I stayed in communication. So like 1 month he paid a storage locker fee, next month me and my brother would pay it. And just because we felt like, listen, you might have got knocked down, but you're not out of the game yet. So let's just
So that-
regroup,
yeah.
hold on to everything, and then we'll come back
Yeah.
and we'll find a new store, a new location for you.
Right.
I don't want anything to do with it. I had a full-time job.
Right.
So anyway, one day I look in my mailbox and there's an envelope. It's got the keys to the storage, the registers, the safe, filing cabinets. He's like, listen, man, I'm gonna send you everything. I'm back here in New York anyway. You do what you can with it, and now I'll pay the rental fees when you can, and we just flip flopped. And so,
And you see, he found a way. His brethren that he worked with found a way, and wherever we put our hearts together, we can find a way too.
yeah, because this isn't really it's a story of black love,
Yes.
but it's also a David and Goliath story, right? Because there's no way that this chain was supposed to even come into the same parking lot as him. It was part of the lease. But you know how when money gets involved, people start cutting corners.
And when you don't have the support of your
Right.
community, you
Yes.
know, when the people across there had a support, they could mute you and put you back in the corner.
Right.
So black people, we are number one in this country. We're almost one of the wealthiest peoples in the world.
We're the biggest spenders.
Biggest spenders.
But what keeps us from being the wealthiest is when we're not spending collectively
Amongst each
amongst
other.
each other.
Correct.
So we decide
Yeah.
who in this country is
Get
rich.
it right.
We decide that black people.
And we could only decide it if we know our story.
Well-
But we could only decide it if we're not always having the narrative of somebody else's story.
We decided, but I think oftentimes I'll go ahead out on a limb and say more often than not, we're deciding to continue to make the oppressor more wealthy. And stronger.
And that's because we've been trained to know their story and know not much of ours.
Well, his point is that when I say brand washing, a part of it is a form of it's marketing.
Yeah.
It's programming.
Yeah.
So I don't fault folks that never saw. We're not on TV. We don't have a lot of exposure in terms of mass propagating a message that you can buy this from your people. We don't see that, right? So we're kind of programmed to go get Dove, Crest, all the brands that we all go get, right? So part of the charter for our store is to offer those alternatives and change that narrative. So yeah, you can get your Crest if you want it, but you can also get Live with Nature charcoal produced by us.
Yes.
You can get that, but you can also have Rat Snacks by Master P,
Right.
as opposed to your Lay's.
That's right.
We didn't have that up until, I'll say recently, where there was a period in time where all that stopped, and it hasn't really begun until I think it's starting to pick up now. And so by no fault of ours, really, that people aren't just going to wake up. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to actually show them, hey, there is actually something here. Now, once we show, we still have to undo some of that programming, because like you said, you kind of pointed out that self-hatred and that type of thing. We still have some other internal issues that we need to work through.
Yeah. And you see, you've hit on a lot of important information, because unless you are able to awaken them, you cannot feed them.
Right.
And if we think about our daily lives and what we are consuming, not just in food, but information, the information we're getting, think about where we get our information about how to see ourselves. We get it through the technological device. I'm not going to leave that to the side. I'm looking at it right now. It has its place.
Right.
But if you see the youths and all they're doing fixated on that, that's wasted time.
Yes.
That is wasted time. And who benefits from that wasted time? If you think about them going to school with teachers that did not want them in school back in 1957 when they segregated into integrated, and now those teachers have them as a captive audience without their parents, who benefits when they come out of there and they're sagging their pants and they're, about everything other than learning? That they find their way right into the prison system. Who benefits? And so there's so much we have to deal with, and I like this, what I'm doing, because part of why I'm doing it is to out those terrible things that we don't talk about. You know,
That's
that is
very
the
important.
elephant, you know, in the room.
Right.
Because our children are looking up to us and asking us, what has happened? Why do people see me this way? Especially the black boy. He was saying, why when I go out in public, I have to hide myself under this hoodie?
Yeah.
Why do I get this vibe from these people that they don't want me here? You know, and for the young girl, the same thing. Why am I not beautiful enough? Why is, you know, because I'm dark, I'm not pretty. We need to see, we're at the top now. We must be able to answer that question
That's
to
right.
them.
That's exactly
You know,
right.
and I remember years ago when I was a young girl back home in the Caribbean, you know, on a Sunday evening when the dry leaves were gathered together by my grandfather, they would burn it, but then to get rid of the mosquitoes, and we would sit on the veranda, which is the front porch, and they would tell us stories. You know, and at the time, some of them were scary. That I had 5 brothers, and I was like not going to bed until my brother right on to me said he was ready. You know, but it was stories about Africa. It was stories about things that we must fear, and I would imagine they gave us stories about things that we needed to know when we became adults. But we're not talking to our children anymore. And instead, the system that wants us to go here and spend our money, see ourselves as this, do this, become clones. Clones. That's what I needed to tell the young man across the way. If we don't spend time reading and seeing the variety of things that our mind is capable of doing, there is no computer greater than what the Creator gave us. None. It is this computer that created this computer, and the question is, for what reason? Who benefits when you wake up and it is what you have to look at? Who benefits when you look all around the room and everybody is zeroed in on this? So I say, if you're looking up and you're the only one really paying attention, you have control. Because number one, you can see the sun, the moon, the different changes in the moon, the different cloud formation. You could start to see what's coming at you instead of seeing it at the last minute. So we have a lot to do. And we have learned to make money master. And we have to put money in its place, you see, and connect with humans again. So I'm going to start to wrap it down because I said it's supposed to be a half an hour and 43 minutes or so.
Well, there's going to be part that has to get cut out anyway because she's still a lighting button.
Yes.
There was one thing I want to mention.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to let him kind of just...
This will be very brief.
Yes.
Real quick. You know, one of the things that's important, I think, to all parents,
Yes.
Particularly ours, amongst the family
Yes.
of black people in this country is, you know, we all think our children are special when they, oh, did you see what he did? You know, because they are. But it's not a matter of, you know, oh, he's isn't that cute, he can do this, or isn't that cute, he can blah, blah, blah. When I was looking at what my children excelled in, I was trying to be as realistic as possible, right? They weren't good at everything.
Right.
It's kind of not true. I'm one of those lucky few that almost everything they touched, they were really good at, but they weren't interested in everything.
Right. Correct.
So
I like that.
their, you know, their attention span for certain things, 0.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but you're really good at just being patient. If you stay with it, Legos. My youngest son fell in love with Legos at 4 years old. And so looking at this boy who he could sit for hours as a little boy since he was 4 and just put these projects together. By the time he was 9 years old, I'm buying $400 projects, and he's spending 13 hours putting together 3,500 pieces. And when I tell you there was not one piece left over, he's at Cal Poly right now studying aerospace.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is just who he is. The other side of that, though, is as his parents, we're looking at the things that interest him, the things that it's like, well, if you're interested in that, let me see where this goes. So we tried to pour into him all the things that we thought would make him, you know, more and better at figuring, critical thinking, figuring things out, going through the process. And like I said, now he's about to graduate with a degree in aerospace.
And you see what he just said? almost brought tears to my eyes. And the reason why I must say that, my brethren, is because there's so many other young youths that's who they were in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody saw them.
Right.
Nobody saw that they were important and the value in them. There was no daddy there.
Mm-hmm.
Mama was busy trying to do this.
That's right.
The school worked against them.
Yeah.
So their dreams are gone.
Yeah.
So you see, your son, we will all benefit from when he walks and does greatness and everybody say, hey, this young man, we all benefit.
Right.
But we also must remember that we also suffer when we see that they say this young man drove the wrong way on the freeway and killed a police officer.
Yeah.
And now his life is over. We also, they don't ask the question, what made him go the wrong way? What was he dealing with?
Right.
But now his life is over.
Yep.
So all we ever ask is, was he black? Because if he's black, then something in my heart dies.
Yep. Yep.
Now, if he does greatness, is he black? I want to say yes.
Yeah.
Something in my heart says yay.
Yeah.
So it's a reminder that the two boys you have plenty more.
Oh yeah. They're
All boys are ours.
They're
All
all
girls,
our
these
kids.
are all our children.
Yeah.
So that oneness, oneness.
Yeah. But you have to look
So
for
everything,
these things
well,
in your children is what I'm saying.
well,
Like,
yeah.
It may not be super obvious.
But see, you were present in their life.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the fathers that didn't have their fathers, that knew
understand
that
that.
there's something they needed to do. Sometimes we can't even deal with the children. It's just to remind the fathers that at any given moment, father, you could be a father.
Well, I'm talking to the fathers when I say
Yes.
you have to look for things in your children. It may not be the thing that you want, because you don't have to tell 90% of the, I'll give you a brief analogy. When my kids were coming up, superb athletes. One of them went to school on a track scholarship. Both of them probably should have gone on some type of sports. But in their classes, when I'm standing next to other fathers, we all have kind of the same fantasy dream for our sons, right? They're gonna run fast, jump high, score the ball, and then get the money, right? And the reality is, we really need to. That fantasy doesn't benefit anybody other than the boy and you. But the rest of us, you know, I mean,
So
that boy that could run faster than anybody else and jump further than everybody else probably could also make a splash in the medical world.
one thing I must say, what is unique about the black people, you know, and we cannot ever avoid the fact that we are the first in creation. So our unique skills, no other could say they have it like us. Cradle of civilization is Africa. So we are those children. So we have unique skills that no other will have. It's whether or not it's nurtured the right way and harvest in the proper way so it can grow. But because we are wounded people coming up from pain, we let a lot of our great children just fall aside, going to the prisons. And so it's up to us, the awakened ones, to harness the children, because we all benefit. And if they go down, we all feel it too. So we could keep talking. This is supposed to be a Sunday class, really. We're supposed to be talking to resolve it in our time so that when the children get it in their time, they have less to work with. Because each and every day that we wake up, there is a system in place to make sure they keep us in our place. Because the prisons are privatized, and they need to have the prisoners in there making road signs and license plates and working for little for nothing. That's where slavery is right now. And so they don't want brilliance like his children he described, and so on and so forth. So we have to wake up, people. We have to wake up. And so thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful opportunity. You see the little sign here? It's like each one pull one up. And I'm going to finish with one of my books, poems from my book, Truth and Light Are One. Okay, so let's see which one. The one I was going to read today is called The Light. Hate can never win, even though it digs a hole into our soul, creating pain, disguised as shame, played out in divisive games. No one wins. It's plain to see that deeper in me lies a love so sweet that neutralizes hate at every entrance, every gate it tries to enter in. Oshun is the light shining bright, healing all negativity in sight. That's right. A big, bright, yellow light burns the darkness clear out of sight, leaving peace and love to multiply in all living beings. I am that light, illuminating the essence of a purposeful life. Watch this. Won't you come for a magical ride, free with nothing of shame left to hide? Free again to be the healing beam of Oshun's light? Yellow. Rays of beams, yes, I mean you too, fellas. For through my mother you've been made, for through thy mother you've made your earthly descension. I'm but a vehicle meant to deliver you whole, prepare you to physically and spiritually be whole, grounded with confidence to surpass your highest goals in this illusionary and dangerous world. Be not afraid of the spirit that lies within you, designed to take you where you had not believed was ordained for you. Our eyes are limited to what our minds know. Backwards experience, no futuristic, optimistic, divine flow. So, my earthly family, listen. It all begins from within. From the light and into the womb, our destiny was decided even before the first breath and the opening of the eyes. No competition, just cooperation. Not hate, just our spiritual connection through love is all that is needed to preserve this magical planet we all must call our physical home, the world. Peace and love be unto all beings of light. Asheo, Asheo, Asheo.